"I'm sorry, sir, but that card's been declined. And frankly, you look like you can't afford to fill up here anyway. Maybe try the discount station down the road." The words, sharp and cold, cut through the afternoon haze. Master Sergeant Arthur Jenkins, retired, stood by the gas pump. His old pickup truck, faded blue and a little rusty around the edges, coughed once before settling into silence. Arthur himself was not much different. He wore simple, clean clothes, but they were old. A long-ago war had left him with a limp that ached more on long drives. He was on one such drive now, a very important one. His old unit, the fighting men he'd called brothers for decades, were having a reunion. It was hundreds of miles away, and his truck, like him, needed fuel to keep going. Arthur looked at the young clerk behind the counter. The boy couldn't have been more than 20. He had a sneer on his face, a look that said Arthur was wasting his precious time. "There must be a mistake," Arthur said, his voice calm, though a familiar weariness settled in his chest. "Could you try the card again, please?" The clerk, whose name tag read Kevin, sighed dramatically. "Look, old man," Kevin said, his voice loud enough for the other customer at the next pump to hear. "I ran it. It's declined. That means no money. Empty. Get it?" He tapped his temple. "You got cash, or are you just going to stand there holding up the line?" Arthur felt a flush creep up his neck. He wasn't a man who embarrassed easily. He'd faced far worse than a rude boy in a gas station. But the casual cruelty, the quick judgment based on his old truck and his worn clothes, stung. "My card is good," Arthur repeated, keeping his voice even. He knew it was. He was careful with his money. He always had been. "I have another one, if you prefer." Kevin rolled his eyes. "Oh, sure, another magic card, right? We get your type in here all the time, trying to get free gas." Wasting honest people's time, he leaned forward, his voice dropping to a conspiratorial, nasty tone. "And that limp? Really laying it on thick for sympathy, aren't you?" Sympathy. Arthur's hand tightened on the handle of the gas nozzle. He thought of the mud, the rain, the screams, the searing pain that had given him that limp. Sympathy was the last thing he'd ever asked for. Respect, maybe. Understanding sometimes, but never pity. He felt a small, hard object in his pocket, an old challenge coin worn smooth from years of handling. On one side, an eagle. On the other, the insignia of his old unit and a phone number. A promise from a man who was now a general. "If you ever need anything, Jenkins." General Wallace had said, his voice gruff but kind, "Anything at all, you call this number, day or night." Arthur had never used that number, not once in all the years since he'd retired. It was for true emergencies, life or death. Was a rude gas station clerk a true emergency? Perhaps not life or death, but this felt different. This wasn't just about gas, it was about dignity. It was about the way people saw men like him, men who had given their youth, their health, for their country, only to be dismissed by a boy who knew nothing of sacrifice. What do you think? Should Arthur have just walked away? Type "walk away" or "stand firm" in the comments below. Arthur took a slow breath. He looked at Kevin, whose smirk was now firmly in place. "All right," Arthur said quietly. He didn't reach for another card. Instead, he pulled out an old, battered flip phone. Kevin chuckled. "Calling for backup, Grandpa? Who you gonna call? The Antique Roadshow?" Arthur ignored him. He flipped open the phone, his fingers gnarled from work and age, carefully pressing the numbers he knew by heart. He held the phone to his ear. It rang twice. Wallace, a strong, clear voice, answered on the other end. "General Wallace, please," Arthur said, his voice still quiet. "This is Master Sergeant Jenkins, retired." There was a pause, then the voice warmed considerably. "Jenkins? Arthur, good to hear your voice, man. What can I do for you? Everything all right?" Arthur glanced at Kevin, who was now idly wiping the counter, trying to look bored but clearly listening. "Yes, sir. Well, mostly. I'm at a gas station, sir. The Fill N Go on Highway 17, just outside of Fort Bailey." "Fort Bailey?" General Wallace said. "I know it well. What's the trouble, Arthur?" "I seem to be having a bit of local difficulty, sir," Arthur said. "Just trying to get some gas to make it to the reunion." "Local difficulty," the general repeated. There was a smile in his voice now, but also a hint of steel. "Understood, Master Sergeant. Stay right where you are. Help is on the way. And Arthur?" "Sir?" Don't let them get you down. No, sir. Thank you, sir. Arthur closed his phone and slipped it back into his pocket. He leaned against his truck, his bad leg throbbing a little. He watched the cars pass on the highway. Kevin glanced at him, then shrugged and went back to scrolling on his own phone. He probably thought Arthur had called his wife, or maybe a friend, to complain. He clearly didn't expect anything to come of it. 5 minutes passed, then 10. The air was still hot and heavy. Arthur waited. He was good at waiting. The army had taught him that. Then he heard it. A low rumble in the distance. It grew steadily louder, closer. It wasn't the sound of a single car. It was many. Kevin looked up from his phone, a flicker of curiosity in his eyes. The other customer, who had finished fueling and was about to leave, paused. The rumble became a roar. And then they appeared. One by one, a line of dark green military vehicles turned off the highway and into the gas station. First, a Humvee with flashing lights, then another. Then a troop transport truck, then another, and another. Soldiers in full combat gear sat in the back, their faces serious. They pulled in with practiced efficiency, blocking every single gas pump. They blocked the entrance and the exit to the station. Within moments, the Go was surrounded by a convoy of the United States Army. Kevin's jaw dropped. His phone clattered to the counter. His face went from pink to white. He looked like he'd seen a ghost. The door of the lead Humvee opened, and a colonel stepped out. He was tall, imposing, his uniform crisp, his boots shining. He surveyed the scene for a moment, then his eyes locked onto Arthur. The colonel strode purposefully towards Arthur, his footsteps echoing in the sudden silence. He stopped a few feet away and snapped a sharp, perfect salute. "Master Sergeant Jenkins, sir," the colonel's voice boomed, clear and strong, easily carrying into the convenience store where Kevin stood frozen. "General Wallace sends his compliments. He said you were experiencing some local difficulties. Are you all right, sir?" Arthur returned the salute, a small, tired smile touching his lips. "Colonel, I'm all right now, thank you. Just needed a little gas." The soldiers in the trucks remained at attention, a silent, powerful testament to the respect Arthur Jenkins commanded. Other customers, drawn by the commotion, were now staring, their phones out, recording. Suddenly, a car screeched to a halt outside the ring of military vehicles, and a man in a cheap suit, looking flustered and panicked, scrambled out. He ran towards the colonel, then saw Arthur. "What is going on here?" the man gasped. He was the station owner, Mr. Henderson. He'd clearly gotten a very urgent phone call. "Master Sergeant, I am so terribly sorry. This is unacceptable." He shot a furious glare towards the store, where Kevin was trying to make himself invisible. The colonel looked at Mr. Henderson, his expression unyielding. "Master Sergeant Jenkins, a decorated veteran of this nation, was denied service at your establishment, sir. He was treated with disrespect. General Wallace, and indeed the entire United States Army, takes a dim view of such treatment." Mr. Henderson wrung his hands. "I understand, Colonel, I understand. It won't happen again, I promise." "Master Sergeant Jenkins needs to fuel his vehicle," the colonel stated. "And as a gesture of goodwill, and to ensure your pumps are working correctly for our nation's heroes, perhaps all of our vehicles could use a top-up. On the house, of course. Consider it a training expense for your staff." Mr. Henderson nodded vigorously. "Of course, Colonel. Absolutely. Free gas for everyone. For Master Sergeant Jenkins, for life." He himself grabbed a nozzle and began to fill Arthur's old truck, his hands shaking slightly. Then, Mr. Henderson marched into the store. His voice, though muffled, could be heard yelling. A moment later, Kevin stumbled out, his face pale, carrying a small box of personal items. He didn't look at anyone as he scurried away. "That young man has been terminated," Mr. Henderson announced, returning to the forecourt, looking considerably stressed. "Effective immediately. We do not tolerate that kind of behavior. We will be implementing mandatory sensitivity training for all employees, with a special focus on how to treat our veterans with the honor they are due. If you think Kevin got what he deserved, type justice below." Arthur's truck was soon full. The colonel shook his hand warmly. "Glad we could assist, Master Sergeant. You get to that reunion safely, you hear?" "I will, Colonel, and thank you, to you and your men, and pass my thanks to General Wallace." The soldiers gave Arthur another crisp salute. Then, as efficiently as they had arrived, the convoy started their engines and, one by one, pulled out of the gas station, leaving behind a very quiet, very stunned group of onlookers and a very relieved station owner. Arthur got into his truck. The engine started smoothly. He had a full tank and he would make his reunion. He thought of Kevin, not with anger, but with a touch of sadness. The boy had learned a hard lesson today. Maybe he'd think twice before judging someone by their appearance again. The story of the quiet veteran and the military convoy at the Phil and Go spread like wildfire. It was talked about in the town, shared on social media. The gas station chain, embarrassed by the incident, did indeed implement new training programs nationwide. They even put up signs offering discounts to veterans. Arthur made it to his reunion. He shared stories and laughter with men who understood him without a word. He never mentioned what happened at the gas station. He didn't need to. He wasn't a man for grandstanding. He was content in the quiet knowledge that sometimes, even in a small way, wrongs could be righted. He was glad his old friend, the general, had remembered him, and that the brotherhood of soldiers still looked out for their own. What happened to Arthur teaches us an important lesson. Never judge a person by how they look or what they drive. The quietest people often carry the greatest honor, earned through sacrifices we may never fully understand. Those who have served our country, who have put their lives on the line for our freedoms, deserve more than just our thanks. They deserve our deepest respect, every single day. If you believe our veterans are heroes and deserve our unwavering respect, type "heroes always" in the comments. And remember to subscribe for more stories where quiet strength meets loud injustice, and justice in the end always prevails, because true honor can't be declined.